Not cute today. I'm not gonna hold you. It's a day in which it is what it is. Welcome to Blueprints. Grab your tea. I'm having sparkling water in a glass bottle because glass freaks me out less than plastic. What is discipline being? That is the inquiry of today and also of the last week. I did not make a video last week because I didn't know what it was going to be. It's tough raising parents. Yeah, my mom is cancer free, which means that she's everywhere but home. And I did not realize how much work that was going to be on my part. I feel like I have an overactive 2-year-old in the body of a 50-something-year-old woman. Cheers. I'm going to start with discipline and what it does not mean. Discipline does not mean punishment, first of all. That is often what we are told that discipline is. Especially as children, being disciplined meant a punishment. Discipline did not mean the development of skills, which is like a more literal definition of discipline. It's just the development of skills, right? Discipline, when you heard it as a child that you need to get disciplined or you're going to be disciplined, for a lot of us, it meant getting your ass beat. It meant being put in isolation. It meant having to tolerate somebody yell at you. It meant something unfortunate, even traumatic, happened to you for the sake of correction, which again, correction is in quotes because I'm not sure how much the beatings I got as a child actually corrected the behavior. More so they made me afraid to do the same thing, but I didn't have the discipline, right? The development of skills to realize what was disadvantageous for me about that behavior other than your mom's gonna come hit you with a spoon. Discipline for a lot of us meant that we were being punished, and now we're adults. And so we have to figure out a way to go about discipline in our adult lives that does not punish ourselves. A lot of you all said this in the comments last week. These comments are very helpful to me, not just in making sure that I did not feel alone, but also in reminding me that this is a particularly charged word for folks, this word here, discipline. And discipline is a word that you are not going to get around when studying revolutionary theory and also the experiences of other revolutionaries, because they will talk about the necessity of discipline a lot. Discipline does not mean that you do the exact same actions every day no matter what. Not necessarily. That's one form of discipline, but it's not every kind of discipline that could exist. Discipline does not necessarily mean punishing yourself for deviation. I don't think that punishment is really a necessity at all for learning. Discipline means development. Discipline is the concentrated development, the intentional development of new skills. Discipline means development. Discipline means development. This is why I likened it to babies learning to walk. There was a really brilliant comment left by someone on the last week, and it boiled down something to the effect of like, I said, yeah, babies learn to crawl so that they can learn to walk. I said more than that in the essay, but that was the gist. And this person said, but babies learn to walk in many other ways than just crawling. Yes. Babies roll, they floor swim, they belly flop, they do all sorts of shimmying, meandering, two-stepping nonsense to figure out how to get their 2 feet on the ground to be able to support themselves. They do everything but stand still though. You do have to move because the development of the skeletal system, the development of the musculoskeletal system, those muscles and bones will fail you if you never move them. There are so many right ways to develop strength. There are so many right ways to get up into the walking stage. There's not one right path. There's not one this, then this, then this, beginning, middle, end narrative to getting from point A to point B. All of it requires movement though. No hero has ever experienced their journey standing still in the exposition. No baby has ever learned to crawl by staring up at the ceiling from the floor and doing absolutely nothing else. You must move. You have to develop the skills that you need to get from point A to point Z, okay? Discipline means development. Discipline means development. It does not mean that you need to be perfect. It does not mean that you need to be perfect repeatedly. It does not mean that you have to punish yourself. Discipline means that you move the skills that you are attempting to develop. So if the skill you're attempting to develop is consistency, right? I'm flexing that muscle right now. Movement can look like practice, education, reorientation, action, right? Like not an exhaustive list, not necessarily in that order, right? All of these things necessitate movement. Discipline means development. It means the development of skills. And if you want to develop skills, you got to use them. 2 quick points. In the Discord, when people were talking about discipline, they talked about the skills necessary to be able to get shit done. And one of those skills was knowing the balance between education and action. How much do you need to educate yourself to be able to act appropriately? I'm always going to argue that we fault ourselves on like the side of like, oh, I need to know a little bit more. Oh, I need a little bit more. Because action's the scary part. Action's where you mess up. Education exists in action And also educating yourself is an action. So these two things are not as separate as we think. I would really want to separate this better into preparation and failing, because where you take action is where inevitably you will fail. And this is the thing that we're trying to avoid. So we try to do as much education as possible to mitigate the results of that failure, but understand that failure is coming for you. If you act, you will fail. If you try to get up and walk as a baby, right? Learning to walk, you will fall down. Lots of the reasons that we did all that wiggling and giggling and rolling and snarling and all that kind of stuff was to make sure that our muscles were developed enough to catch us when we fell. And lots of the reason that we engage in this preparatory work is to make sure that we can mitigate the results of our failures so that they're not like fatal, permanently scarring, all that kind of stuff. You will fail. This is the thing that we're trying to avoid here, right? You will fail. You will fail. You will fail. Also, you will learn so much more from your failure wherever you fail than you ever will doing the prep work. We only need to do enough prep work to mitigate the case scenarios that are unacceptable to us, if that makes sense, right? I did not drive a motor vehicle by myself until I was reasonably certain that I was not going to cause a 4-car pileup, right? Like, I've still been in car accidents. I've been in car accidents that had nothing to do with me and were not my fault, right? So failure is inevitable in going about doing whatever it is that you want to do, particularly when there are stakes required and particularly when the action is necessary. It might even not be failure that's your fault. Prep enough such that you can reasonably assure yourself that you are not going to do anything permanently damaging or fatal to your mission. But past that, it's about avoiding failure. The balance is how much failure can I tolerate in this particular circumstance. Doesn't make it easier. I just think it's an easier question to answer. Doesn't make the action easier. It's just an easier question to answer. Also, I am capable of more than I think that I am. I really am. The conscious mind is really, really loud, such that you might think that your whole self is just sitting right here in the control center of your brain, the conscious part of your mind. But that is not all of you. You are an encapsulated infinity. How much do I want to get into this right now? I'm going to set up some basic parameters about how I think about the psychological self as it exists in the body in regards to the modalities that I studied and continue to practice as a trained mental health professional. Remember, I got my master's in clinical social work. So one of the reasons that I like therapy, particularly hypnotherapy, is because it reminds you just how unknowable you are. We have a lot of hubris, humans. We tend to think that we know ourselves in entirety, that nobody knows us better than ourselves, that we know ourselves like we know the back of our hands, etc. Even though I don't know how much time you all spend staring at the backs of your hands yourself. You are bigger than the thoughts that you think on the day-to-day. You're bigger than the body that you can feel, right? Like, how often do you feel your kidneys? Even though they're a very integral part of your system and functioning, and if they failed, you would die. How often do you physically feel your kidneys? Can you point to where your kidneys are right now? Okay, it's not just that there are systems and structures about our bodies that go on beyond our conscious thought, which is a good thing. It's a godsend, okay? It is also that even within the mind that we have to explore, there is what we know about ourselves, what we know that we don't know, and then there's also what we don't even know we don't know. In the same way that humans are in this universe studying ourselves in these encapsulated infinities of our galaxy and the galaxies beyond that, understanding that the universe is something that is constantly expanding. We are infinities just Russian dolled inside of bigger and bigger infinities. You yourself, you finite human being, between these finite integers, right? Or of 1 to 2 or 17 to 18, whatever number you resonate with. I personally just go to 0 and 1, right? Meditation, the process of taking yourself down to 0 completely, or at least getting as complete as you can to brainwaves that are slow enough such that you can receive the world around you, okay? The world that you might not be able to see or feel or hear or touch. And then there's you, one finite integer human, and there's all this space. In fact, there is an encapsulated infinity between 0 and 1. There is an infinite amount of number and number combinations between 0.000000 repeating 1, okay, and 9.99999 repeating, okay. All of it approaches infinity, or in this case, 1. There's an encapsulated infinity in here that is you. You will never be entirely knowable to yourself, okay? So what does that have to do with developing emotional discipline, or really any kind of discipline? Today, for me, it's the emotional discipline, right? Do I want to be here right now? No. Is this going to be my most high quality video? No. But I'm here because I said I would be, and because I don't want to make missing videos a habit. And that also means that if all I can do today is get on camera with some chapstick and say it really fucking sucks, that's what I'll do. I'm here for me, because this unknowable mind, right? Like the mind outside of my conscious mind that is like, I have 17% battery today, do what you will with that information. That mind is not all that good at accurately assessing your capacity, because there are many, in fact, the majority of you is unknowable to your conscious mind. You can spend your entire life going on archaeological digs, exploration, Lewis and Clark, maybe less colonize-y, don't colonize your internal self, that's definitely possible, but you know, expeditions of sorts, going about figuring out who it is that you were, are, continue to become as you continue to expand and bop between 0 and 1. Okay? There's an encapsulated infinity here. This is relevant because when your conscious mind is deciding what you can and cannot do, your conscious mind has also been shaped, molded, and programmed by the world around you. Your family systems, your current relationships, the government systems, the everything in between, right? Your micro, meso, macro systems have also had a hand in how your brain works, which means that the limitations that we set within our minds are more likely than not man-made. I am not asking you by any means or metric to stretch yourself past the natural capacities, right? The natural finite nature of being a human being, right? We have battery packs, we have bodies that need rest. We have, right? There's only so much we can do with these hands and these feet, etc., right? Like part of being human is being finite. I am saying that oftentimes the limits that we have in our mind about what is achievable, what is possible in general, and then what is possible for you specifically are entirely man-made. They can be made up and remade at any given point in time once you have new, different, or better information. I'm making a video because I know that my subconscious takes me very seriously and is taking notes about what I say that I can do, what I say that I will do, and the actions that I take to support those claims. I want to train my subconscious into believing that I can do what I set out to do, even when it doesn't feel good in the moment, and it doesn't. I am not having a good time right now. The other note that I want to get to is disability. I assume that we're moving from the social models of disability, right, in this group, which is that the problem is not necessarily what your body or your mind, your psyche, etc., can or cannot do. The problem is what society has deemed as acceptable enough to be able to participate in society, right? That's what we're working with, right? Because that's what I'm working with when I talk about disability, the social model of disability. Not that anything is inherently wrong, bad, or maliciously cursed about your body or your mind or whatever you're imagining yourself as. Fill in the best word. Whatever is limited about you, it's not the finite nature of yourself, right? That is the problem. It is in fact that there are many ways we exclude people with certain finite abilities in this capitalist hellscape. Disability does not mean that you cannot do anything. Disability means that you can't move like other people move, right? Physically, socially, moving throughout infrastructure, psychologically, right? You can't move how people move. It's not a copy paste. But if you're here, if you're learning from these spaces, if you're commenting on these videos, disability does not mean that you are incapable of any sort of thought and action. And I'm not talking about hypotheticals. I'm literally talking about the people that talked about disability in their comments and talked about how it fractures their relationship with discipline. Discipline is also often synonymous with consistency. Consistency is a skill. Discipline is the development of skills. Consistency is not discipline. I'm trying to find an example to compare this to. Discipline is the development of skills. This is the skill itself. Just like a welder is not a spoon. A welder can make a spoon, but welder and spoon are not synonymous, right? Discipline is the development of a skill. Meal prep, consistency, breathing, okay, whatever, all of those are skills that have been developed, right, by use of discipline. This is the thing that shapes the tool. This is the tool. They're not the same thing, okay? So if discipline means development, and the people who are dealing with disability in one or multitudes of stacking relationships here, myself included, does not mean that you cannot do anything. It means that you cannot move like other people move about things, okay? So you can do something. I'm not asking us to have a one-size-fits-all copy-paste relationship for what it means to develop the skills that are important to getting your goals done. I'm asking us in terms of if you want to participate in the tracking and the setting of your goals and of your circumstance, have a mission, a life calling, a habit, a hobby that has high enough stakes such that you care about whether you fail or not, okay? That succeeding would bring you a better quality of life, better joy, better food, better love, better whatever, okay? Make sure that the stakes are high enough so that you actually want to participate. And then in the process of developing the skills necessary to reach that goal, speak honestly with yourself about what you have the capacity to do to this point. Okay, this is my final ending point. This is where folks tend to get a little bit rickety. Okay, I'm willing to expand on these thoughts because I know that they're going to be a little bit abrasive, but I do believe them. Okay, you have this conscious mind that is so much smaller than what you generally are, right? You yourself are unknowable even to yourself, not in entirety, right? You are an encapsulated infinity, which means that the conscious mind that is in the control room is not necessarily good at taking an accurate inventory of even what it knows. Sometimes it can disregard or talk down on, depending on the mental narratives that go on in your mind. But this is what you know about yourself. This is what you know that you don't know. And this is what you don't know you don't know. So out here, these outer bounds of the mind, we very rarely explore these because we just don't do, as humans, things that we believe are impossible. We just don't do it. Lots of the development of skills, lots of discipline for me is just reminding myself that much more is possible than what I initially believe. I am capable of much more than I think that I am. My neighbors are, my mama is, the nation is, the world is. There's just more possible than what I wake up believing on any given day. I actively have to stretch my mind and convince myself of this reality because it is the reality that is most helpful to me. I know that there is more that I don't know about myself and my capabilities than I do. I know that because I surprise myself. I know that because when I take risks and it goes even better than I expected to, which happens often, right? Like, it isn't even just that I take risks and expect to win. It's often that I learn so much more about myself than what I previously set out for, which means that my own inventory was lacking. I had more tools in the tool shed than I thought. I know that I have a subconscious mind that is listening to me and taking me very seriously. And I know that I have an incredibly limited, even if it's determined, a limited conscious mind in terms of what conscious mind believes is true and possible of my circumstance and of me. So I really do. On days like today, when I'm like, I don't got it. Like, I don't really got it to make a blueprint so everybody's going to understand it. I don't want to. I sit there and I repeat silly things to myself, such as, I can do anything. 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 Because even if I don't believe that, I will be forced to contend with whatever belief I had that said, no, actually, you can't do that. I have to sit there and be like, why? Why can't I sit in front of a camera for 15 minutes and talk about what I've learned about discipline? What actually is stopping me from doing that? I know that it sounds silly. I'm not saying that I don't feel silly sometimes. I'm saying I've studied too much psychotherapy at this point to disregard the importance of thoughts. I also said a similar thing in the first essay of Former Part-Time Visionary, that the bounds on your mind control where you go and what you do. You don't move towards anything that you fundamentally feel is impossible. You just don't. So it's necessary to remind myself pretty much every day that there are no actual bounds on my life. Even if I don't see how it's possible right now, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it because I can do anything. Helpful mental reorientations for me, these two, right? I can do anything. I'm capable of doing anything. And I am not running behind. I am right on time. I'm capable of doing anything. There's more than enough time. I am capable of developing myself, and that's all discipline is, developing myself. I am capable of developing new skills. I'm capable of honing old skills. I'm capable of putting skills together to do things that I hadn't previously imagined before. I understand that sometimes the things that I want might feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unsexy, unconfident. Okay, like, that's okay. Sometimes part of development means looking like a beer battered, freshly fried fool. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be crispy. Crispy today. It's worth it being crispy if that's what development costs. That's okay. I am not running out of time. I have more than enough time. I'm right on time. There are no boundaries on my mental scape. I can do anything. Even when it sounds silly. One day it's not going to be silly. I can do anything. See you next week.